You are being eaten alive right now without a single scratch on your body. A silent predator is actively bankrupting your life force. Discover the brutal psychological amputation you must perform today, or risk arriving at your deathbed, realizing you surrendered your entire destiny to a ghost. Imagine bleeding out, but there is no wound. You haven't lifted a single heavy stone. You haven't fought a war in the trenches. Yet your bones ache with a leaden heaviness and your spirit is so utterly paralyzed you can barely lift a finger. You collapse onto your couch at the end of a grueling day, your eyes dead and glazed over a glowing screen, while a relentless predator tears your mind to shreds. Did my boss figure out I'm an imposter? Why did my coworker use that condescending tone in the meeting? Am I going to lose my livelihood next month? You are being eaten alive right now, not by wild beasts prowling in the dark, but by the very organ meant to protect you. Welcome to the era of invisible slaughter. Welcome to the devastating reality of internal friction. At Brain Boost US, 05 warmly welcomes you to a journey into the darkest, most hidden corners of your own mind. If you want to survive this modern mental apocalypse and reclaim the fierce, liberated life you were always meant to live, I urge you to hit that subscribe button right now to fuel our mission of bringing you the profound, life-altering truths they will never teach you in school. This internal friction is the psychological equivalent of flooring the gas pedal of a high-performance machine while the emergency brake is violently yanked up. The engine is screaming, the fuel is burning out of control, the gears are grinding into dust, but you haven't moved a single inch forward. We are hemorrhaging our most precious resource, our mental life force, into a bottomless void of things we absolutely cannot control. It is a merciless dictator living rent-free inside your skull, exploiting your last drop of sanity to script catastrophic scenarios that will likely never happen. But why do we willingly torture ourselves like this? To understand this tragic flaw, I need you to travel back tens of thousands of years with me, to the unforgiving African savannas. Picture our ancestors. They didn't have armor-plated skin, venom, or sharp claws. Their only weapon against brutal extinction was the tribe. To be cast out meant starving to death or being torn apart by apex predators. Because of this, our brains hardwired a hyper-vigilant, paranoid alarm system. You must constantly decode the eyes and judgments of others. If the tribe dislikes you, you die. That primal, visceral terror is still pulsating in your DNA today. As you sit in your climate-controlled, concrete-reinforced apartment, you are trembling at a slight frown from your manager with the exact same physiological panic your ancestor felt when facing exile from the safety of the cave. We are carrying around Stone Age hardware desperately, trying to run 21st century software, and the system is completely crashing. The cruelest irony of this self-destruction lies in a psychological trap known as the illusion of control. We are creatures terrified of the unknown, desperately craving certainty in a chaotic, unpredictable universe. So, we invent a delusional coping mechanism. We somehow convince ourselves that agonizing over a problem, losing sleep, or shrinking ourselves to please others will magically alter the fabric of reality. We secretly believe that if we just worry enough about tomorrow's flight, our anxiety alone will keep the plane in the air. It is a spectacular deception of the human mind. Worrying has never once stripped tomorrow of its sorrow. It only ruthlessly amputates the strength and beauty of today. To see the absolute peak of human defiance against this mental trap, look no further than the cinematic spectacle of Chris Gardner's real-life agony in the pursuit of happiness. Picture that devastating moment. A desperate father holding his sleeping toddler on the filthy floor of a subway station bathroom. His wife has abandoned him. His bank account is a graveyard. He is homeless, dragging around heavy bone density scanners nobody wants, all while working a grueling, unpaid internship at a stock brokerage. An ordinary man would have drowned in a toxic ocean of internal friction, cursing God, hating his ex-wife, or spiraling into madness about how he would survive tomorrow. But Chris performed a brutal, agonizing psychological surgery on himself. He amputated every ounce of concern for the uncontrollable. He stopped caring about the mocking stares of creditors or the cruel unfairness of society. He violently recalled 100% of his mental energy to a singular, piercing focal point. What he could do right, in this exact second. Make one more client call. Read one more page of material. Fix one more broken scanner. He is the blindingly radiant proof that when you reject the illusion of control, you seize actual, undeniable power, turning the deepest abyss of adversity into a launchpad instead of a grave. Chris Gardner's radical mental shift exposes a glaring, uncomfortable truth about our own daily existence. We are rarely the victims of our actual circumstances, but rather the willing hostages of our own agonizing perceptions. If you truly examine the architecture of your misery, you will find that the vast majority of your suffering is entirely self-authored. We possess a dark, almost grotesque addiction to our own internal friction because, on a subconscious level, it tricks us into feeling productive. When you lie awake at 3 in the morning, your heart pounding against your ribs as you endlessly rehearse an argument that hasn't happened and likely never will. Your brain genuinely believes it is doing the necessary work of survival. We have falsely equated worrying with caring and panic with preparation. You convince yourself that if you just analyze every microscopic variable, every slight change in a client's email, every subtle shift in your partner's mood, every potential fluctuation in the economy, you can somehow build an impenetrable fortress against failure and heartbreak. But this fortress is built on a foundation of vapor. The reality is that your hyperanalysis is not a shield, it is a poison. You are forcing your nervous system to endure the physiological trauma of a disaster that exists nowhere but in your own imagination. Think about the sheer absurdity of this human condition. We drag the unchangeable regrets of the past and the unknowable terrors of the future into the sacred space of the present moment, crushing our spirit under a weight we were never designed to carry. The ego is the master architect of this prison. Your ego is terrified of powerlessness, so it creates phantom battlefields where you can fight endless, exhausting wars in your head, simply to maintain the illusion that you are in the driver's seat of the universe. It whispers that if you drop your guard for even a fraction of a second, the world will collapse around you. It is a brilliant, devastating lie that keeps you perpetually exhausted, deeply cynical, and tragically disconnected from the raw beauty of the life unfolding right in front of you. We become so obsessed with steering the wind that we completely forget how to adjust our sails, leaving our potential stranded in a dead calm of our own making. Because we are so deeply addicted to this false sense of control and this endless mental warfare, we silently bleed out our most vital energy on battlefields that do not even exist. The tragedy of internal friction is not just the immediate anxiety it provokes. It is the staggering, unrecoverable opportunity cost of a life half-lived. I want you to truly process the finite nature of your existence. You only have a limited, highly unpredictable number of days on this earth, and a finite reservoir of cognitive energy to spend each morning. When you allocate 70% of your mental life force to dissecting the unfairness of your industry, the toxic behavior of your relatives, or the unpredictable trajectory of global markets, you are effectively bankrupting the only resources you need to actually build your dreams. Imagine the symphonies that were never composed, the revolutionary businesses that were never launched, and the profound romances that withered on the vine, all because the architects of those beautiful things were too busy paralyzed by the fear of judgment or the dread of an imaginary failure. This invisible epidemic is actively robbing you of your presence. Have you ever sat across a dinner table from someone you deeply love, nodding along to their words, while your mind is completely hijacked by a spiraling thought about a minor mistake you made at work? You were physically there, but your soul was entirely absent. You surrendered a priceless, unrepeatable moment of human connection to a ghost. The ultimate tragedy of the human experience is to arrive at the end of your life, lying on your deathbed, only to realize that you spent the overwhelming majority of your precious decades desperately defending yourself against threats that never materialized. You realize, far too late, that the monsters were never under the bed. They were manufactured in the very mind that was supposed to help you soar. The cost of this friction is not just a headache or a bad mood. The cost is your destiny. To halt this tragic bleeding of your life force and escape the graveyard of unfulfilled potential, you cannot rely on gentle affirmations. You must embrace a ruthless, uncompromising philosophy of detachment. You must perform the exact same psychological amputation that Chris Gardner executed in that subway bathroom. This is not about toxic positivity, and it is certainly not about ignoring reality. It is about drawing a violent, absolute line in the sand between what you can control and what you cannot. It is time to look at the uncontrollable variables of your life, the opinions of your peers, the decisions of your executives, the chaotic whims of the economy, the inevitable passage of time, and let them burn. You have to give yourself the radical permission to stop caring about things you cannot touch with your own two hands. If the market crashes tomorrow, let it crash. If a coworker decides to misinterpret your ambition as arrogance, let them sit in their resentment. Their perception is their karma. Your reaction is yours. This requires a visceral, almost painful surrender of the ego. You must look in the mirror and admit, with profound humility, that you do not rule the universe. You are merely a sailor on a vast, unpredictable ocean. The fool screams at the storm, cursing the dark clouds, and exhausting himself trying to punch the waves into submission. The master simply secures his cargo, grips the helm with terrifying focus, and steers his ship through the chaos. When you notice your mind spiraling into the abyss of what-ifs and should-haves, you must develop the cognitive discipline to snap the emergency brake. Ask yourself one piercing question. Is this completely within my control right now? If the answer is no, drop it like a burning coal. Refuse to donate another second of your precious, irreplaceable life force to a useless cause. Recall every ounce of your stray energy, gather it up from the past and the future, and slam it violently into the only space where you have absolute, godlike authority, the present action. When you finally drop the crushing, impossible burden of trying to govern the universe, a breathtaking silence washes over your mind, revealing the immense, sovereign power you always possessed. This is the ultimate awakening. The moment you stop bleeding your energy into the void of the uncontrollable, a miraculous alchemy occurs. All that wasted anxiety, all that exhausting paranoia is instantly transmuted into a hyper-focused, laser-like intensity. You stop being a victim of your environment, and you become a deeply dangerous, unstoppable force of nature. Because while everyone around you is busy crying about the rain, drowning in their own internal friction and complaining about the unfairness of the game, you are quietly building your ark. You begin to move through the world with a stoic, magnetic grace. Insults bounce off you like pebbles against a titanium wall. Unforeseen disasters no longer shatter your identity. They merely present a new, intriguing puzzle for your liberated mind to solve. You reclaim the absolute ownership of your emotional state. Joy is no longer conditional on everything going perfectly according to a fragile plan. Joy becomes your baseline, anchored deeply in the pride of knowing you are doing your absolute best with the tools you hold right now. This is the fierce, liberated life I promised you at the beginning of this journey. It is not a fairy tale. It is a neurological choice available to you in this exact second. You do not have to wait for the perfect job, the perfect partner, or the perfect bank balance to feel at peace. The cage door has always been wide open, but you have to be brave enough to step out into the terrifying, beautiful unknown. Reclaim your mind. Amputate the uncontrollable. Refuse to be eaten alive by your own thoughts for one more day. Step into the arena of your life not as a fearful prisoner of circumstance, but as the unquestioned master of your own soul. The ultimate tragedy of the human experience is not the adversity we face, but the psychological prisons we build for ourselves. We squander our finite, irreplaceable energy on phantom battlefields, obsessing over unchangeable past regrets and agonizing over imaginary future disasters. This relentless internal friction tricks us into feeling prepared, yet it only leaves us exhausted, paralyzed, and completely disconnected from the present moment. The profound realization here is that this suffering is almost entirely self-authored. We are held hostage by our ego's desperate need to control the uncontrollable. To break free, we must perform a radical psychological amputation. This requires a ruthless, uncompromising detachment from everything outside our direct physical control, the opinions of others, the unpredictable whims of the economy, and the natural chaos of the outside world. By forcefully drawing an absolute line in the sand between what we can influence and what we cannot, we immediately halt the devastating bleed of our life force. Dropping the impossible burden of trying to govern the universe allows a profound silence and clarity to emerge within the mind. All the cognitive energy previously wasted on anxiety is instantly transmuted into laser-like focus and undeniable momentum. You cease to be a fearful victim of circumstance and transform into the sovereign master of your own destiny, anchored firmly in the only realm where you hold true, unquestioned authority. Immediate present action. True power does not come from anticipating and controlling the world around you. It comes from mastering the world within you. The ego's desire to mentally fight every potential threat is a devastating trap that actively robs you of your destiny. Absolute freedom, unbreakable peace, and peak performance are achieved only through the radical surrender of what you cannot control. The emergency brake technique. The moment you feel your chest tighten over a what-if scenario or a past mistake, physically pause and ask yourself one piercing, binary question. Is this completely within my direct control right now? Ruthless amputation. If the answer is no, treat that thought like a burning coal. Drop it immediately. Give yourself radical, unapologetic permission to stop caring about outcomes, opinions, or events you cannot dictate with your own two hands. Anchor in present action. Immediately gather that reclaimed mental energy and slam it into a single, tangible action you can control in this exact second, whether it is finishing a specific task at work, organizing your environment, or simply looking the person in front of you in the eyes and listening deeply. What is one specific worry or what if in your life right now that you know you need to let go of because it is completely out of your control? Please kindly share your thoughts in the comments section below so we can all read and learn from each other's perspectives. If you found value in this message, please subscribe to the channel to support our work and give us the motivation to keep creating more profound, high-quality content for you.